All right, good afternoon, almost evening. Thank you all for being here. This is our CDBG-DR, that's an acronym for Community Development Block Group, Block Grants Disaster Recovery Funds. This is a public hearing to discuss the parish's priorities for those funds. So I'm glad to see some familiar faces here. Happy that you all joined for this meeting as well. We have had one public meeting earlier this week. Was it this week already? Last week. Wow, time flies. We had one last week, and so just kind of trying to get around to different spots of the parish to make sure that we are engaging people close to where they are in areas impacted by the recent 2020 and 2021 disasters and Hurricane Ida mainly. So appreciate you all being here. I'll dive right into the presentation because the main point of this is really to get input from you all onto what the priorities are and the ways that the parish should spend this money that has been handed down to them from the state and really from the federal government, from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So I'll get into the details of that for about maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then leave the floor open for you all to make some direct comments, questions, give us some feedback on the funds themselves. But I want to start with how we got here. And I guess first I should say my name. My name is Stacy Bonifants. I work with a company called CSRS, and we have been engaged by the parish to provide consulting services and grant management for federal disaster funds. So we've been working on this process as well as FEMA and some other HMGP and other projects, and I'll get into some of the planning we've worked with. So been engaged with your parish for quite a while now on recovery and looking at the projects going forward. So to start with, I was saying how do we get here? Or what the overview is. We have $41.4 million right now has been allocated to the parish under the state of Louisiana. Those funds are federal funds and are coming in two specific programs. So it's not that it can be used for anything that the parish wants to do with it. The federal government and the state government have defined exactly the sort of sandbox that the parish can work in for these projects. And they have to fall in these two categories: Hometown Revitalization Program and the Resilient Communities Infrastructure Program. Those are kind of like fancy words for what we'll explain more, but really it's economic development and infrastructure. Those are the two programs here, and these are not allowed to be used for homeowner programs or affordable rental programs. So it cannot be used for housing or for elevation, not because the state doesn't see that as important, but because the state has already put money into those programs at the state level. And so this one is being passed down to the parish level, and I'll explain that a little bit. But how did we get here? I think I wanted to highlight, and I know Chris couldn't be here, and Jennifer Trebasi is here from the planning group and can actually provide some more feedback if needed or details on this. But all to say here as a background of this is that the parish has undertaken, and CSRS has helped and guided the process, a planning process after Hurricane Ida to already identify the needs in the parish as you recover from the storm. What are the resiliency measures and others that can be put in place to make this, make us stronger and better able to survive what is likely to be, more disasters coming our way. So how do we mitigate against this and build up our protections? And so out of that planning process of many meetings throughout the throughout the parish and throughout different regions of the parish, they came up with two plans: a long-term recovery plan and the HOMA Main Street plan. The Main Street plan focuses mainly on the downtown development and redevelopment, as you know, greatly impacted by Hurricane Ida. And the long-term recovery plan talks more about all of the resources across the parish and the different areas that will need some upgrades or other investments. So some of the projects, both of these plans are available. They are online on the parish website, and both of them are for now for your viewing, and if you have feedback to provide to the parish. But they basically will be a guidepost to almost determining all of the resources that are out there from the federal government and the state government for disaster response and resiliency. Looking at, now you have almost a wish list, like you have the list of projects that have already kind of on the shelf a little bit there to actually source out to these different funding sources. I'm sure we've all heard that there's infrastructure money coming from the federal government. There's the American Rescue Plan. There's all these different resources from the federal government, but you have to have a project, and you have to come in and give them, you know, what fits those parameters of those funding sources. And so the parish has really taken the first step to define what the needs are, so that when those funding sources announce sort of what's available for it, you have a guidebook that's already, you know, in place. So this is the guidebook that is actually going to be used as well. You have a leg up, I think, for the process in the CDBG HUD funding, because lo and behold, the state has decided that $41.4 million is coming down to the parish, and now we can turn to these plans and at least look at some of the priorities that have already been discussed post-IDA in your recovery. So this slide tells a little bit about this when I mentioned that the state itself already has decided, has received over $2 billion for disasters in 2020 and 2021. It includes Laura Delta, which, you know, more is on the Lake Charles side and Calcasieu Parish, and then also includes Ida and some of the other floods that have hit between those years. But over $2 billion have been dedicated to Louisiana, and Louisiana Office of Community Development, the state, has broken out the programs where this funding is allocated. This all had to go through a public process as well, had to be submitted to HUD. HUD had to bless it and approve it. And so this is all approved. There's actually more money in there, so don't really lock yourself in on the dollars. There's actually more dollars than these programs. But you can see the Restore program. Many of you all might be familiar with the Restore homeowner program. That's where the money is at the state level for helping homeowners with repair, rehab, and reconstruction and elevation of their programs. They also have quite a bit of funding set aside for flood insurance, for interim housing assistance, and then this whole suite of affordable housing programs which have been opened up for application. Many of them are in the Terrebonne region. And then the ones we're talking about right here today is the Hometown Revitalization Program and the Resilient Communities Infrastructure Program. And both of those kind of fall under economic development and infrastructure. Both of those programs, the state has decided, instead of running it at a state level, that by formula, they're pushing the money down to the parishes to administer directly. And so based on the amount of damage that Terrebonne Parish had in comparison to the other parishes, your allocation was determined as split between these two programs as $24.7 million for the Hometown Revitalization and $16.67 for the Resilient Communities Infrastructure. I think on the list, you all are maybe second or third of all the parishes that were impacted by IDA. So just to give you a relative sort of comparison to what other parishes have received. We also have reason to believe that the parish is going to put more money into these two buckets of these two programs. They did get another allocation from the federal government. They haven't told the parish how much. So I put that in your head because as we look at the projects and the priorities, if it doesn't meet this first amount of money, we're already trying to collect all the projects for the second, ideas for the second money as well, anticipating that more is coming. So to be brief about it, now no, I'm not being very brief for you all, but the revitalization program, keyword revitalization. This is really a kind of broad brush of anything that impacts economic development, anything that can, investment of these funds into driving more businesses into your investment corridors, developing jobs, job training, creating jobs, facade improvements, possibly giving grants to businesses where you can make the corridors look better so that people drive people to an economic an area. Maybe sidewalks, maybe lighting, small grants to bring companies in. They've done business incubators where, you know, and shared office space. Just a lot of different ideas. I mean, this one is like the most kind of creative in bringing in economic growth, and really it has to fit the area. A lot of programs are, you know, particularly in South Louisiana, looking at fisheries grants, maybe piers or decks. So I mean, piers or shared cold storage and other things like that that might help spur some economic growth and development in our communities. So that just gives you some ideas, and I have some other projects listed later. And community infrastructure, I think it's important just to know it's the word infrastructure. It's, you know, everything that helps us be stronger in the face of a next disaster, whether it's drainage or floodgates or supporting the surrounding levee systems and other basic infrastructure. But the key here is also resilient and looking at not just rebuilding where we are today, but projecting ahead. What do we think is going to be the state of our land as we look forward, and the water that we have to live with, and what can we do in order to build better and build more forward thinking. These funds, however, come with some requirements. Like I said, they're federal funds. They actually come with a little bit of federal strings, and some of the requirements to note is basically it has to be tied to the storm event. Not hard. Everything here can be pretty much tied to what we all were impacted by in Ida. It also has to be located in a presidentially declared area, which you are, so that nothing is surprising about those. The other ones is that it has to benefit low to moderate income persons. This is a very specific HUD thing. If you talk about FEMA projects, no one ever talks about LMI. They may use words like benefit cost analysis or other things, but they don't really talk about low to moderate income. HUD is very much focused on providing a benefit to disadvantaged communities or persons of low to moderate income. So that is found out by a mapping of census tracts, mainly here, because most of our projects are going to have an area benefit. But I'll show you a little bit more on that, about what LMI means. But just to understand this, I can't see the colors here. I think the blue is, DOT has mapped, this is the parish, and this is the disadvantaged communities, and the gray is the LMI area, the darker gray. Yes. And then these areas really either are sparsely populated or I think aren't considered LMI. I know we can zoom in on this. I think at the last meeting they requested that we put a more zoomed in map, and I will try to get one of those up on the website because I think it might be easier to see. Your parish is so big that I think, you know, when you're looking at it on that scale, you probably miss some of the detail on the geography. But what is LMI? LMI is a low to moderate income factor where you look at the average median income of the area. So it's very locally based on your local economy and salaries and income. And basically it looks at average median income across the area and judges 80% and below. And if someone is 80% and below, or based on their family size, is 80% and below the average median income, then they meet the LMI criteria. So just to give you an example, a family of 4 right here at 80% and below makes $58,000 a year. So anybody, if it's $58,000 and below, that's where you get those shaded gray areas. So most of the people in that area are of that income level. The only reason to really highlight this is that it is a requirement. So if we're looking at some of the projects that have been proposed or suggested, and it's put smack dab in the middle of that light area where there was really no LMI around it, it would be a very difficult project to justify. So I think it's important to know that while the programs are broad, these requirements might prioritize that decision or make it where you have to actually, possibly move away from that project because it won't become eligible. So one of the other requirements because of federal funds is definitely engage the public. Want to hear from the public what are the priorities. The parish has to submit in their plan that they have taken in public comment, that they have factored it into the plans, that they are responding to the needs as identified. And stakeholders are citizens, but it's also our nonprofits, groups that are in the area operating in economic development, all of our local government agencies and different like planning and zoning and different departments that are already working on projects and have spent all their time focusing on what your needs are. So we've heard from the council members, the local government, and then really just trying to make sure that we have many opportunities for people to comment and provide input on the priorities. I won't go into these too much, but I've listed already some eligible activities and ideas under these programs. And what this is calling out, and again, this meeting is to hear ideas, but we thought it might spark some ideas and let you know that some of your fellow citizens have already given in some ideas that might impact the area, and maybe you want to comment on those ideas as well, not just provide some other ones. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is not even a list that's going to the state. This is just some ideas that have already been received by the parish. So if you want to look at any of those or maybe provide some comment on those have been actually already discussed or received in some of the other planning processes. And then the next slide is the same description and follows the same pattern, and then some of the ideas about canal improvements, drainage upgrades, also looking at some possible property acquisition in downtown and maybe reuse of some of the vacated buildings, and then looking at oh, that's okay. I was looking at the last one, wind retrofit. I don't know the exact project there, but okay, next. So as I said, meaningful input from the public. I know there's not as many people here, but I'm thinking of you as an extended arm and can actually then spread it to others as well. This is not the only opportunity to comment, so hopefully you all will help us spread the word. We've been doing so through social media, doing it through the public website, through the other meetings, but we have posted, this is a QR code link. It has a survey on it. The survey will ask you some priorities of what you think in general the priorities for the parish should be and how high you think those priorities are. But there's free space in there to write whatever project or that you think the parish should be focusing on. And I would ask, please be specific. And when you're telling people, be specific. If you can tell us such and such street, such and such canal, such and such area, it really helps to hone in on the project if you're specific. So I invite you to please, the codes are on the table. You can take those sheets with you, hand them out in your local groups. The more that we get, the better it is for the parish. But the QR code hopefully will make it easy. We do have some hard copies of the survey if you wanted to take some of those. But this feeds in directly, so it helps us accumulate all the comments very easily. So the survey is very important. But of course, there's a website. I mean, there's an email address as well for the parish. You can send comments to the parish at idarecovery@tpcg.org. And we're here today to listen. So I think with that, I've covered everything. Jennifer, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. I'll just mention that, you know, in the long-term recovery plan, which I think is going to council for approval, you know, a lot of those ideas, the whole point in that long-term recovery plan, I think there were 7, 8, 10 meetings all over the parish, and so that should reflect, and we hope some of the folks, you know, read it and commented on it, but that's supposed to reflect what people thought we needed to do in the parish. So it's not really chock full of projects specifically. So we really are looking for projects, like what types of things, what specific things, what types of, you know, educational programs, what types of economic development programs. If y'all think we need to have an incubator or cold storage or safe harbors or just whatever you all think of, that's really what we're interested in hearing about, especially things that are not up here yet, but something very specific. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've, did you take in some cards? Okay.
Hey, and as I told you when you guys walked in, this is the time I gave you those comment cards. And if you want to hold up your hands, Tessa's going to collect them, and then I will call on your names one by one to make sure you can stand up, have your comment or questions. So just put your little cards in the air if we have any comments or questions. All right. Brave man, going first. Oh, here.
I think it's because it's recorded, so it's better to speak from the
So I think some of these things are probably already in a plan somewhere, and forgive me for repeating any of that if it's already there. One of my suggestions would be to identify points of distribution on each of the 5 bayous before the storm, because for Ida, we were not well prepared. The Ward 7, this building was used as a point of distribution, but it wasn't really planned that way. And then in Pontchartrain, there was no point of distribution, and so we really had to try to work to identify what that point would be with very limited communication abilities, because we couldn't use our cell phones. And so it was, you know, driving places to talk to people to say, hey, can we use your cousin's old gas station as a point of distribution, because there's nothing else available and people are asking for water in Pontchartrain because there's nothing getting down to those folks. So I think having a plan in place and identifying those areas, and maybe even 2 areas, you know, saying for Chauvin, the Ward 7 is the first point of distribution, but, you know, a different building someplace, because if something happens to this facility, then you need to have a backup plan. With that said, I think that the parish could create an MOU with the organization that holds the building, because here in Chauvin, the American Legion building has been sold. Not quite sure what's the plans for that. A lot of the other community buildings have been destroyed, torn down, are no longer operable, or being sold. So I feel like in Chauvin, the Ward 7 is going to be the place. And like what Barry and I were just talking about is this building still needs to have some repairs done from Ida. And so if there was some way to enter into an MOU with that organization that could then provide funds to fortify that building with the understanding that it would be used as a point of distribution in the time of an emergency, because this place was run by volunteers for the most part, and very successfully too. So I think if there's a way to make that happen along each of the 5 bayous. And again, like I said, this seems like a no-brainer to me, so I feel like this probably should be in a plan already if it's not. And if it's not, then, well, it should be. You mentioned that there wasn't money for residential properties, so this may be ill-placed, but I would say putting some money for Chris Pulaski and the nuisance abatement department to tear down structures, because I think it weighs on people emotionally to drive by places and see them without roofs. And, you know, I get that it's a process and the money's coming in, but I think it would help the community heal, not to have to see those buildings just, you know, being a hazard, really. And I recognize that there's not money to tear them down right now, but as this money comes in, certainly it seems like the commercial structures and the government structures that are damaged can benefit from this money, but maybe there's a way for, you know, people's houses, you know, if they're not paying their taxes and then it goes into default, that they can, you know, we can use some money to do that. The mental health needs of the folks in our parish, I don't know how that fits into this. I think it could fit into a resilience piece of that. I don't know if that's, I'm not saying that's let's build a building and have a mental health center, but there is a much larger percentage of people that appear to be abusing drugs and alcohol on the streets just on a daily. Like, I mean, it used to not be that you drive by and see people kind of appearing as though they may be on some kind of substance just walking on the street. It used to not be like that. And I feel like we're seeing more and more of that. And my assumption is that that is a way for people to deal with what we went through, and they're not coping in a very healthy way, but that's the way that they have to cope with it, so that's where we are. So I think if there's some way to assist our people to get through that, and to, I don't know, I don't have an answer for that, but I just feel like that's a huge issue that we have to try to overcome. And then finally, just quality of life things, which I think a lot of this speaks to, of you know, we haven't lost all of them, but I feel like we're losing a lot of our reasons for staying here. And so we need to remind people of that.
Thank you. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I am Candace Malden, the CFO of the parish. So some of the things that you pointed, I want to let you know we have some plans working. The first one about the points of distribution. Earl Hughes and I have talked about that. We have not addressed it as far as getting these places repaired. So I like that idea. So we'll work on that one. That might be a unique thing. There may be some other funding for that.
Candace, if I can add, that has been eligible and brought up by other parishes, like even making some distribution points resilient. Like
Okay, perfect.
all of your utilities, making things where, like, if that is your space, that is the space that's likely to be still there.
Yes. Yeah. So I do think we will, those 5 bayous do need to have a place where, and we need it to be where everybody knows where to go. And even if it's a place where we can just come in the morning and put in a list of what's available where, you know, a central unit that we need to do. So I do like that idea. You had mentioned about the demolitions. So we have currently our PBDR, personal property, I always forget what DR is, but anyway, it's with FEMA. That was that volunteer program. That has not ended, so we're still working on that. We also had introduced to the council last week a budget amendment using our American Rescue Plan money. We're going to try to put aside $1 million. It will follow Chris Pulaski's department, so it's going to be the condemnation process, but with that, we'll be able to demo those homes. So that is something. Mental health. We have also introduced to the council a crisis center to be built in Houma, which was addressing more of the COVID-related mental health, but I think all of this can kind of go into that. We also have gotten approval with the council to allow us to be part of the opioid lawsuits, and we're getting some money from that. So that is going to help significantly with the drug use and all of that. So most of that we do have in place. I just wanted to let you know that we do have plans. We're going to put what we can included in this. Let's add as much money as we possibly can, but that's where we are with those. And I agree with you on the quality of life. So whatever we need to do to keep people here is what we're going to try to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
of their cards? I have one for Mr. Lee.
Thank y'all for doing this. I appreciate it. My name is Lee Schaffer. I work with a nonprofit in the local area, and I live in Schriever. Been here all my life, except for a little period of time that I was in the military. And Jonathan has sparked a lot of additional questions I'd like to bring up. And whenever we're talking about the response to future storms, I think there's a need for a facility where we had hundreds and hundreds of volunteers come through here, and there should be a multi-use facility that can be used for one thing during blue skies, and during gray skies it can be turned into a place where volunteers can come and help and have an organized fashion of getting out to the field so that they can do the work that they came to do in a safe and efficient manner, where there's a facility where food can be prepared for them, where they can take showers that's safe and those sort of things. Just a regular gym that has a division in it on a couple of the bayous that people could go into, that where we know that if we have a group of volunteers coming in, they can go there and take care of their essential needs and then get out to the field. I mean, we're still looking for that type of facility today. People are volunteering to come in and help all the time. I didn't see in there where you talk about infrastructure, and I realize there's a lot of money been put into housing, but I think there is continual a gap between what the Restore can do and what a lot of our residents are able to accomplish on their own. And I think low-income housing and revitalization of low-income housing so people can remain in their homes is still a need. And I didn't see it in there, and I'm worried that we're going to have a group of people that are elderly, disabled, veterans, that are going to be pushed out because at this point in their life, there's just nobody to help them any longer. And I don't think we have to do that. I don't think we have to push those people out of our community. I think they can stay there. I think we can revitalize their homes. They're not going to be as resilient as a brand new home would be, but they will be resilient enough for them to live in the home until the next storm comes, and then we encourage them to move out and get out. But at least they would be able to live out the rest of their life in a place that's their home and their community. Homelessness. Homelessness is a huge issue. It's gotten worse since the storm. It's been impacted by the storm. We have no women's shelter, and the homeless issue in the parish for men is really deplorable. And I think Jonathan hit on that in his mental health issue. Mental health is one of the conditions. The drug abuse, substance abuse, and all those things are impacting us as well. And I think there needs to be a place where we can have women and children who are in crisis and need help to be able to find a place to stay that's safe besides the Haven, because the Haven is for a specific reason. But people that are just homeless or just had become homeless, that they can find a place to stay, whether or not that's small apartment complexes throughout the community, or whether or not that is a facility where they would all go and they would have a place to stay. I think it's a huge need. And then for the guys, I think there are a lot of plans and desires on what we do with male homelessness, but there are some ideas that other communities have done to make that better, and I think we could do the same thing here. Projects, I didn't see a place. Is there a place on the website that shows all the projects that people have recommended? Or are you going to put those out there?
We're taking it in, yeah. When things get kind of little for eligible, I will list the projects as we get.
Okay, because I think as people are sending information in, I think you will begin to see what a lot of, I guess that's your purpose, is to see what a lot of people are interested in. And
So far, I've had 53 survey results from last week's meeting, so people are responding.
okay, I think that's it.
Thank you. Sorry. No, go ahead, please.
All right, just to give you a little bit of information. So homelessness, we know, and homes you know, fixing up homes. Unfortunately, these programs can't be used for those two things. But that is something that we have heard over and over and over again. Kelly with our Department of Housing and Human Services, her and Chris Pulaski have been working really hard with the state and trying to get what we can. So that is, we don't have plans yet, but we're trying to get something in place. I like the idea of having a universal place for volunteers to come. I don't know that we ever will have something big enough that we can have just for that all the time, but we have done a disaster recovery response RFP, and part of that would be where we could set up tent cities for those volunteers. So it may be something that we're working on that would just be a temporary thing. And as far as the survey, so these slides will be up on the website, so those that are included in here are available there. We might want to consider, once we determine based on the recommendations we get and we determine if they're eligible for this or not, to put them on there. Not saying that they would be part of our application process, but that, hey, these are what other people have, to start the thinking process. Because you may see something, you're like, oh, well, what about this? So I think that might be a good idea too.
And if I can just add, we do have to, the parish, when they submit the projects to the state, we have to submit the amount of projects up to the dollar value that we have and alternates. So there will be a plan that's submitted to the parish, and that will be on the, to the state, and that will be on the website too, of which ones are submitted. But it will go over the dollar amount, because it is possible the state will look at some of the projects we propose and determine that they're not eligible for some reason, and knock them out. We want to have like some others in the mix. And then, like we said, the additional funds that are coming probably allow us to drop down as well into more projects. So just when it gets to that point that it's going to be submitted to the state, that final version will also be on the website.
All right, Miss Janie.
My name is Janie Wazan. I'm from the Grand Caillou area. I'm going to repeat some of the same things because I have some of the same ideas that you guys had. I'm for the community centers, building a community center in each community where you can use that community center to offer mental health, substance abuse help. You can offer tutoring to kids. I think I'm a school teacher. Our kids have a lot of mental health issues, and it's not always being addressed. You know, they're really struggling with everything that's happened, and I think a community center in my community would do well. You can also offer some sports activities for those kids as well. I feel like I agree with him on the distribution place, because when it was time, when the storm happened, it was just craziness. I waited in line for 2 hours for a 5-gallon can of gas. You know, people were just acting just, you know, it was just crazy. So if we had like this big distribution center that, you know, good traffic flow, and we could manage the traffic, and you know, I think in that area, if you could have where FEMA comes in and everything is all in the same place, you know, you can help the elderly fill out paperwork, the insurance people can show up there, and it's just like a one-stop shop where everybody can go. And, you know, because I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of elderly people, a lot of people don't get on the internet. They don't know. You know, I almost didn't know this meeting was happening. I just happened to see it on Facebook. So if people don't have that, they just don't know. But if it's a place that everybody knows is there, and they know that that's the place to go, you know, I think we need something like that in the community. I also think, I think this is included in all this, making our parish more attractive, you know, wanting our kids. I mean, I have a grown daughter that went away to college, and I'm fortunate she came back home. But she talks about how, you know, it was hard to come back home. You know, she wants to live in a nice place. She wants to live in a pretty place. And I live almost at the end of Grand Caillou, Dulac. And, you know, she talks about it all the time, how disheartening it is to pass and look to see the trashy homes, the trashy bayous, the trash on the side of the road. Just, our parish looks really bad right now. And, I mean, granted, we've had a lot of hurricanes. So I think if we would clean up our parish, clean it up, you know, fix the fronts of buildings, pick up trash, just the derelict homes. I know we're working on it. but to me, it's just not fast enough. You know, there's so many of them. I just feel like it's a danger too. We have some homes that tin is just hanging, and the next storm, you know, it's just gonna fly. I just passed down the street just a while ago, and I saw a big 20-foot sheet of tin that was still wrapped around a tree. You know, so we got a lot of that hanging around the parish. You know, that some people just can't clean it. You know, they just don't have the means to clean, and it just looks bad. So if we could make our parish look a lot cleaner, it would want people to come down here. And there's a lot of things that could be done. You know, we put boots on the ground. I mean, I think we could, as a parish, maybe sponsor cleanups. I host a cleanup in my parish once a year. But if the parish could sponsor that, you know, in each community, I mean, it's hard to get somebody that's going to do it. You know, I do it because I can't stand seeing it. But if, you know, the parish could sponsor it in each little town and say, hey, we're having a cleanup in Ashland North. This is what we're doing. Market it to the people. And I know I have a hard time marketing mine, but we do get people to come out and help. But if they know there's people that's good at doing those kinds of things, and just do little cleanups here and there everywhere. I also would love to see in my community a fishing pier. We have a lot of mess. I clean up a lot of trash in the places where people fish. They go on the sides of the roads, wherever they can go. They trespass. They go on the side of bridges, and they leave everything behind because there's no place for them to fish in Grand Calle. Now, in other communities, they built some things, and they're really nice. So I hope we're on the list for that. I would love to see at the end of, and I'm just throwing this out there because this is my dream, at the end of Dulac, there's a new place right on the end, right, where it opens up to Intercoastal. It's a big old piece. If they could put a nice fishing pier right there, there's a lot of parking. It's a beautiful piece, right? You know what I'm talking about? Right by the Bubba Dove gate. It's right past T. Herbs. Instead of turning left to go to T. Herbs, you keep straight. And there's a spot right there. It would make a beautiful fishing pier for Grand Calle. We would attract people from all over the place to come and fish. People could build stores down there. They could build bait shops. That people could make a living selling bait. You know, you talk about, you know, making new jobs, and you know, we had a bait shop that was around our house. Storm wiped him out. He's done. We have no more bait shop right there. We had two of them that got destroyed. But I think that would bring a lot of people to the community. It would give something for our kids to do. I would be on it. I'd be passing by my boat, but you know, if I was a kid, I'd be on it. I'd be fishing. You know, but they stop along the bridges. They stop everywhere to fish, and it's not safe. And they leave a mess behind. So I think we could use that. Kayak launches down the by would be great. People go down by Sally Road. I did it. I got stuck on the side the road in my Jeep trying to get out, trying to launch. You know, some nice little launches down by Sally Road would be really nice. I also think we could do a litter program. I mean, I said something about some programs to maybe put in the schools or something. I don't know if that's something, but like teaching kids about littering and cleaning up the communities. The dialect structure, sunk boats. You know, I harp on this. Every bayou has sunk boats. I think the first thing is to follow the ordinances that we have. You know, hold people accountable for their boats that sink, get them out of the water. I counted in my bayou from the end of the bayou all the way up. We had 69 boats that we had. And just recently I saw 2 or 3 of them get pulled up. I'm not sure why, but I celebrate every time one gets pulled up. But it's a problem. I had one sunk right by my house, and I went fishing the next morning, and there was oil and diesel everywhere in the water. So it's not good. You know, I stopped fishing when I saw it. I was like, I'm not eating the fish that I'm going to catch. So it would, like you said, it would make our people feel a lot better if our bayous were clean. You know, they're getting cleaner. We do some cleanups, but, you know, the people need to be educated to not, you know, trash the bayous. But anyway, let's see what else I have. I think that's pretty much it for right now. But that's just my opinion.
Go ahead. You want me to go ahead? Or you want to go? You want to take it? No, go ahead. Okay. So I may not say what you say because I had a lot going on in my mind when you were saying that. But the sunken boats. Okay. We are in the process, it's very expensive and it's also very environmental because of all the oil, exactly what you said. And we don't want that in our bayous because we want to be able to fish and eat the fish that we catch. So we have gone through the process with FEMA to identify the boats and start trying to get those removed and environmentally safe. So that is starting in the process. It's going to take some time, unfortunately, but hopefully we can get, you said you had 69. I think we had counted overall, it was 100 and, just overall, it was like 138. I probably am completely wrong on that number, but we have identified all of them. So we are kind of working on that. Boat launches and fishing piers is something that's been top priority for us. So I wrote down what you talked about so that we could bring that up as well as some of the kayaking launches. And then the other thing I want to tell you, just this is kind of on a side note, if you have an organization that is doing any type of bayou cleanup or anything like that, we can help you advertise that through our website and through our Facebook. We'll just have to get you in touch with the right person.
I know you guys do sponsor the dumpster sale.
Yes. So if we're doing any type of co-sponsorship, so if we're doing that for you with the dumpsters and stuff, we will help you advertise that program.
Great. And I'm saying your name for our note taker. This is Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Yeah, everybody's had great ideas. Jonathan, great ideas. Lee. One thing is, our fishermen are suffering right now. A lot of these factories are closed. Our shrimp docks right now down the bayou, the two that we have down the bayou, are right now closed because there's no place to deliver these shrimp to. I think that if we can model something after the Delcom fresh food market that they have in Delcom, which is beautiful, that would help our fishermen out a lot, where they can go up to these docks and sell shrimp themselves. And once a month, they have a big old Cajun band that goes out and plays on the big pavilion. And a lot of people, a lot of people go to it. So it's real nice. You know, I'd like to see a fisherman's market. I brought that up years ago, but we got a lot of blowback from some of these shrimp docks. So, and another thing I think we need to have is safe harbor for some of these vessels coming into the place inside these levee systems. I know we've talked about having one before. We went to a meeting a couple of 2 or 3 months ago about safe harbor, but I don't know how long that you were there. That was the same meeting, no?
No, we've heard it several times as a suggestion.
Okay, all right, safe harbor, yes. And another infrastructure project I think that we could do is down some of these low-income places is citywide sewage. And with that citywide sewage, if that would be granted, it could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because with the sewage, they come down the middle of the road with it. And we need all our streets and all right now repaired. So if we could get on this program, it would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'd have sewage and we'd have new streets. I think that's something that we should be looked into, because we do have a lot of low-income people living down these streets. And we're getting ready to build it. We are in the process of building a new library by Klondike Road. We need to see about having funds for after-school tutoring for some of these young kids, because some of our parents are not capable of helping these kids with their after-school homework. So if that's something that we could do, where we could educate our kids for them to grow and be more responsible citizens. But yeah, you know, this is a good program that everybody's doing right here, but I'd like to see it happen, you know, because I've been to a lot of these deals where nothing ever happens. We talk, and I hope that they could come down, and if we got this $41 million, that it's put at the right place, you know. Just like for mental health that we were talking about in drug abuse, I know the parish is getting, I think it's $600 and something thousand to do this with. And when we passed the motion for this, the pseudo-opioid companies, a motion was made by myself that the only place that this money could be spent is on mental health and drug abuse. Because the drug abuse leads to all kinds of deals. That's what brings crime into this parish. I mean, it's not the sole reason, but it's the major reason we have crime in this parish is because of drug abuse. And we need to stop trying to just putting these people in jail houses, and need to try to rehabilitate them, because putting them in prison is not helping them out none. But we need to try to rehabilitate them. And we do need a place where we can rehabilitate them, because some of these kids that that I know of that have that went to rehabilitation, they drive all the way to Shreveport. They got to go, and it's hard for the families right here to keep up with their young. And I'm talking about young kids, you know, 10, 12, 14 years old, and they got to drive all the way to Shreveport. So if there would be some kind of facility that they can build in Homer, right? Because I know they're building something else, you know, for mental health and all in town. So if something like that can be done in conjunction with that, that would help us out a lot. But you know, there's a lot of things that need to be done. We need to clean these bayous up because it looks horrible when you come down these bayous. But, you know, a lot of this, and I'm going to tell you from a councilman's viewpoint about it, all these people, when they came back from these hurricanes and they seen grandma's house and they seen mama's house all demolished, they were going to fix these homes. You know what I mean? A sentimental value. No, we're not tearing them down. We're not putting them on this program that FEMA's got. But now that 2 years has passed and the house is still in pieces, their sentimental value is going out the door. So we need to make sure that we get more monies. I think it's $1 million we have to, but it might take more than $1 million to do what we have to do because we need to clean up all these homes in Terrebonne Parish and make it look presentable for where everybody can come. But, you know, fisherman market is my main priority. We need to do something to help these fishermen out. So if y'all could put that on the top priority list, I would be surely happy. So thank y'all.
Can I speak about the mental health component? Okay, so I'm a social worker. Get to the mic so they can hear you on the camera. Okay. You can hear me? Okay. I'm Elizabeth Dago. I work for SBP, but I'm also a social worker. I worked in mental health in Terrebonne, well, actually in Region 3 for like the last 20 years. And so I have worked in substance abuse and mental health, and I've also developed programs for LDH for the last 6 years. Mental health is going to continue to become an issue if we do not meet people's basic needs. Housing, food, security. They are going to continue to be in crisis as long as those basic needs are not met. So we can put out all the treatment that we possibly can, but if their basic needs are not met, they're going to remain in crisis, and they're still going to go to these alternative sources to be able to try to cope. So we have to break it all the way down to taking care of people's basic needs. If they are worried about where they're going to lay their head at night, how their children are going to eat, where they're going to get their next meal, or, oh, grandma is where she's getting her medication from, they are not going to be able to become sober or take care of their depression or anxiety because their basic needs are not being met for medical care, food security, housing, all of those things. So we have to really get down to, like, as a community, making sure people's basic needs are met before we can even address their mental health issues. Does that make sense? Like, if we go to bed at night worrying about where we're laying our head, you're gonna remain in crisis. So we have to take care of people's basic needs. That's my little spiel. Yeah.
I got it. You know, and we always go about, you know, we talk about, I'm gonna get on with her, about quality of life projects. Let me tell you what to over half of people in Terrebonne Parish what quality of life is having a home to go to with a meal and a roof to sleep over your house. That's quality of life. The rest of it is just fun and games. But quality of life is having a place to go to bed, to sleep there, and have a family that you can eat with. So that's real. In my heart, that's the real quality of life projects. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you. All right, some of the projects we've heard, we definitely, even though you didn't see them on the list, we've heard them before from some of those prior planning, and we have those on a really big spreadsheet. And it's great to hear that that's confirmed. Some of the things like of course.
So we have done an application, CPRA has done an application for us for the safe harbor. Part of that would be, they didn't put in for seafood market, but that is one of the plans that we had for that same area. So just want you to know that we have started working on that safe harbor application.
So damn long, Candace.
It does, but it takes a lot of money too. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. So we're going to try to figure out something that we can do quickly.
Any other comments or questions before we say goodnight? Stacy, do you have?
Oh, I mean, I just want to say thank you to everybody for your comments. I've done a lot of public meetings and been to a lot of them over after lots of disasters, and I'm super impressed that that of the types of things that you're talking about. I mean, it's really. You know, it hits to the heart of, you're not asking to build a levee out there, you're not asking to build these huge, you know, big infrastructure projects, you're talking about people. And anyway, I mean, I know that all of this money can't be used for every one of those types of activities you've mentioned, but that really just centers us back on what are the investments that are going to get to people and to the needs. So I just sincerely just want to say thank you, because I think it really meant a lot to hear that from you all. And I think that that is something that the parish, you know, at least Candace, thank you for being here, but I'm sure is what the parish will take back and factor in. So again, thank you for your comments.
Quick question. How do you prioritize? You're going to get all of these ideas, and then who prioritizes that the fish market is the most important, or that a point of distribution? How does that work?
It's a good question, because the state tells you you have to prioritize, but they don't tell you exactly. They don't say that Orleans has to prioritize the same way as Jefferson, the same way as Terrebonne. So I think, you know, what we have come up with some factors that are important to Terrebonne, and there will be a way to sort of, I mean, it's almost like a puzzle. I mean, you have to, if you have that much money and you have two big $20 million projects, you're like, well, do I do 10 or do I do 5 little ones? I mean, 2 or 10 little ones, or, so it is a little bit of a puzzle piece, but I think we're starting with the basics of, does it meet the federal criteria? Eligibility, LMI, tie to the storm, you know, and then you get down to, okay, how many LMI? Is the area this big or is the area this big? What is the level of impact of it? And what was the impact of that from the storm? And then you also then have to factor in, what is the maintenance and the upkeep of that? If we do this intervention, is it a one-time investment, or is it an investment that now needs to have a recurring cost to it? So, I mean, I'm not answering your question well, other than I'm saying we're basically laying out some levels of priority that it is going to be a puzzle. It's not going to be just a strict, this one scored a 5, a 10, a 2, and a 7, and so therefore it's all checked. I think the parish is also looking at, you know, geographically, are we dispersed out of our money? Like, we're not putting it all into one place. Are we able to meet some of the needs around? And so, you know, it really is going to be ultimately the parish president and the council that actually, you know, give you sort of a final layout of what you're going to do with the funds. But it is a level of factors that we feed into that, if that helps.
Is there going to be a follow-up to sort of look at all the prior topics?
We have 3 months to turn this in for the first funds. I think, you know, the second funds will probably have another hearing. You know, what I think that follow-up meeting is going to turn out to be like, okay, we have more money. You've seen what we did, what we're put up for these. What are the highest priorities on the next round of funds? So I think that's probably going to turn out to be like sort of the second meeting. But as far as what you will see, the goal is we do this prioritization process of coming up with the plan, the projects that we're submitting, and the alternates, and that will be posted on the website. Notice given out. There is a council hearing as well where it will have to get a resolution in order to submit it to the state. So there will be one opportunity, because we need approval to submit it to the state. But again, we have 3 months to do this. The state tells you this is your deadline, and obviously none of us want to miss the deadline, which happens to be between Christmas and New Year's. So, you know, great timing. But thankfully, you've done so much work. The challenge is really going to be, like you said, whittling this down to what is the priority? How do we justify, you know, that this is meeting the needs? And again, it's never enough money. Not going to be able to do everything, but how do we try to hit some of these priorities?
Can I add one thing, Stacey, to that? Just this website's going to be the central hub where you can check back in. And I want to say something to Jonathan. So just because some of the projects aren't necessarily going to make it on for this particular pot of funding. I will tell you that Terrebonne Parish has been very aggressive about seeking out other sources. We've been working closely with them on a NOAA letter of interest, on EDA grants. She mentioned ARPA funds. Like, we are all putting our heads together because the list of needs, as everyone knows in this room, is very great. So this is a very specific project. We're trying to think of the very specific projects that fit in that, but this list is going to be so helpful for the parish to go after these other pots of funding.
Okay, that's all I have. So thank you all for sharing your night with us. I appreciate your thoughts as well.